Hey, everybody. My name is Jim Farmer. I'm the festival director of Out on Film. Thanks for joining us today. This is our 34th year of presenting stories for, by, and about our community and its allies. This, however, is our first hybrid festival, meaning we have a small schedule of films in theater and a very robust programming virtual as well. We have a really strong lineup this year. We have two great documentary shorts programs that I'm excited about. And we have filmmakers from one of those today that we're going to talk about. So I'm going to let them go around the room and introduce themselves. And we're going to ask them a little bit more about their respective films. Pam, do you want to kick us off?
Sure. I'm Pam Walton, and the film that we entered into the Atlanta Film Festival was The Lodge. And you need me to talk a little bit about the film or about myself?
Just introduce yourself right now, and then we'll just ask more a little bit later.
Okay, so a little bit more about myself.
Well, just do that. That's fine for now. We'll just introduce themselves, and then we'll go back, and I'll ask you a few more questions.
Okay, great. Then I'm done.
Okay.
Hello.
Yeah, you can go next.
My name is Charles Cohen, and I'm with did Into the Light about Baltimore's ballroom scene.
Okay.
And I don't know if other people have joined yet, but I jumped on. So
okay.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks a lot.
Sure.
Katie.
Hi, I'm Katie Martin, and I am also co-producer myself with Jay Gray was not able to make it, and then Charles is the team. The documentary is Into the Light, and it features three Baltimore natives and LGBTQ community as they kind of go on a journey. So we're just excited to be here. Thanks.
Great. Okay.
Hi, my name is Rianne Pyle. I am the director and co-producer of Freedom Day, which is a short documentary that follows three activists in the DMV area after the murder of George Floyd, advocating for racial justice in their communities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Thank you all for joining us. I just want to go around the room again and just ask you a little bit more about your film. You know, when you made it, how long it took, that sort of thing. Why don't we start with Rianne? When did you start and finish your film?
So I started my film in June of 2020.
Mm-hmm.
I had about like a week prep to do it because everything was just happening so fast with everything that had to do with Black Lives Matter that summer. So I got together just two camera guys that I knew, and we shot over the period from June to September, shooting their first march, which was the Freedom Day March, which was like featured on a bunch of like news stories. It was like the first Juneteenth march in DC. Then we filmed their Blackout March, which happened on July 4th, and then their third march of that year, which was the Sing-Along March, which was a march that went around Washington, DC, and they had a choir and everything. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. Katie and Charles?
So when did we start shooting? It seems like it was before COVID.
Right, it was 2019 we started shooting.
Wow. Seemed like, wow. Yeah, we started shooting around 2019 for several months. We basically followed the ballroom scene. We all based around this large ball called the Peabody Ball, which is a really opulent historic library. But we were like charged with like getting behind the scenes. What was it like to kind of live in these houses and kind of live the experience? So Keith Holt in London and Marquise all have three different houses, and they all really graciously allowed us to follow them, you know, all the ins and outs. And we just kind of like absorbed it all and made a short little doc. And Katie, you got anything to say? Jumping in on that?
No, that was perfect. I'm just grateful that the ball itself took place 2019, because as we were in post-production, we thought, what would have happened if it would have hit in 2020? The whole thing would have shut down and never would have happened. So the release was delayed, obviously, because 2020 just shut down. We had hoped to be in the festival run in 2020, but you know, all things work together in a plan for us. And so we're just grateful to be where we are now and just trying to get the word out there and get, you know, some attention on these great stories and lives.
Great. Okay. And Pam?
Well, we started thinking about our film, The Lodge, in 2017.
Oh, wow. Okay.
We started thinking about it because my partner Ruth and I, my wife Ruth and I still have a little trouble with wife, are old enough to retire now. So we started looking around for places to retire, and we found this wonderful place in Santa Rosa,
Mhm.
Fountain Grove Lodge. And Fountain Grove Lodge has gotten a lot of attention in national media, the New York Times, San Francisco Chronicle, LA Times. It's the first of its kind continuing care retirement community that welcomes lesbian, gay, LGBTQA plus seniors.
Mhm.
And, you know, one of the problems that seems to be sort of drifting along below people's radar these days is there really are no decent places for gay and lesbian people to retire and feel safe coming out. In fact, about 35% of gay and lesbian seniors over 50 say that they think they'll have to recloset themselves when they go to a retirement home. And yeah, it's terrible. It's like we don't exist. It's funny, both ends of it, isn't it? We don't exist as youth either. And then we don't exist as old people either. Somewhere in the middle were these sexual crazed homosexual. So that's why we made our film. Ruth and I actually live here.
Okay.
We've
Okay.
been living here since 2017. We
Okay.
shot it here. And that's why we were able to get the access that we got.
Okay. A few of you have sort of answered this already, but I wanted to talk to you all about, you know, how personal this subject matter is to you and why it's important. Why was it important for you to make this film? And again, we'll start with Rianne.
So when everything had just started to happen, I was going into my senior year in college,
Mhm.
and I, in terms of like not only just the pandemic, but when we started talking about racial justice, it struck such a huge chord with me as a Black woman. And I went to a school that there weren't a lot of Black filmmakers, and oftentimes I was the only one in the room. So a lot of the times it was hard to feel like my stories were heard or understood coming from my perspective. And so I felt like when I started to make Freedom Day and I found this myriad of activists that were run by a Black woman, I just related so much to it and
Mhm.
what it's like to undertake such a big task and um, trying to lead and be seen and heard, and to
Mhm.
know that a lot of great movements were started by wonderful Black women, and just to be able to be a part of that and highlight this little microcosm of such like everything on a big scale was really something that resonated with me and something that I just couldn't ignore. And I think that spending the past year making it has been one of the most enjoyable experiences ever, being able to really live with the footage and being able to feel like I was there all over again every time watching it. And I think that it just keeps getting more and more powerful every time I see it. So
Okay.
yeah.
Congratulations. Let's go to
Thank
Pam.
you.
Pam?
Oh, you called on me, sorry. Well, I started talking about how important this is to me at the end of my last little bit. Being 76 and wanting to retire, had a big stake in where we retired. And then finding out what it was like for most gay and lesbian people, seniors in this country, to find a place to retire, it's eye-opening. Just as a personal example, a good friend of ours, Rita, who lives in Palo Alto, we've known her for years. Palo Alto, you'd think Stanford, liberal community. Rita has just retired to a retirement community in Palo Alto, and she has gone back into the closet because she's not comfortable around the other people in this place. This is just one example of situations that are occurring all over the country. So our biggest motivation here was to open up this topic, this subject matter, and get people to think about it, look at it, talk about it, and also hopefully to inspire more retirement communities like Fountain Grove Lodge, or at least call attention to some of the people who run these retirement communities, that they need to recognize that they have gay and lesbian retirees.
Okay. Katie and Charles.
Yeah. It's interesting that Pam, you mentioned kind of to shine light on, and I think also Rianne for yours as well, is shining light on. And for us, I know for me personally, we were coming out of film school and this opportunity kind of dropped into our lap, and we were allowed access and invited into the lives of this community. And to be honest, I had no knowledge. I don't know how much knowledge Charles had beforehand on Ballroom. This was an entire new thing for me, and definitely not being a part of the LGBTQ community, we were so graciously allowed in just to learn. And so part of, I think, what the documentary did, not only personally for me, was teach and just give snapshots and insight into worlds that we wouldn't have known otherwise. And also the documentary itself to be used as a tool to kind of show, what do houses mean as a family for people who have been kind of ousted from their traditional families, right? And how these new families are necessary in this community and why. And so the film began to be shaped around not only these three individuals, but their houses, and what do houses mean for this community. And these were all new things for us. And so I was just so grateful to be a part of the journey and part of the entire process. But part of the hope is that this doc can kind of serve as that tool to communities that aren't familiar with Ballroom. They're not familiar with houses, and to see what that is and why. So for me, that became the connecting, the reason, that it kind of morphed into, as docs tend to do. Charles, I don't know what about for you?
Well, for me, being a lifelong Baltimorean and a documentarian in Baltimore, like Katie said, hardly any experience. But what I really loved about it was, especially with Keith, he was sort of our main person. We had a lot in common, me and Keith, and even though we're doing different things from different backgrounds, but we both have this love of the city and this sense of like the city's been wronged in sort of like stereotypes, and even the stereotypes that he's dealing with. He really wanted to show that even the stereotypes about Ballroom is already being manifested, and some of it, they say truth and stereotypes, but he wanted to have his vision of what was going on, and sort of like, kind of come up with his own idea of what is going on, and not necessarily what other people wanted to be going on. So for me, I was just trying to be, the storyteller, like, to tell me the story and I'll get it out for you. I think, with our team was really good. We had like a lot of different perspectives, and between us, we really, it was a great experience of just working together and trying to get these like really nuanced ideas that were really important to Keith and London and Marquise, to give us a sort of, I hope, a realistic picture of what they went through. So
Great. Okay. Who are some documentary filmmakers that have inspired you all? We'll start with Pam.
Let's see. Well, Barbara Coppola springs to mind. I love her work. And Frederick Weissman, I guess every documentarian wants to be Frederick Weissman.
Mm-hmm.
The cinema verite approach, I think, has been the most inspirational to me, other than the standard PBS style documentary, more of a free-flowing, let it happen in front of the camera.
Okay. Rianne.
I would have to say that one of the biggest inspirations for me, like in most recent years, is Garrett Bradley, who made the documentary Time.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen a couple of her shorts, and then I felt like Time was so beautiful that it's really like, in my next project going forward, really trying to push myself as a documentarian to try to figure out new ways of telling stories visually. I think that her method in Time is like pretty unorthodox. And so I really loved watching her stories and being able to be one of these documentarians that's really telling a lot of social issues, especially pertaining to like the Black community, which I think is what Garrett Bradley does really well.
Right.
And Katie and Charles.
For me, I'll say Dream Hampton, most recently in the series of Surviving R. Kelly and kind of some of her work. I'm very much an activist in by kind of passion and purpose. And so anything that kind of takes that tone to kind of dig under a big mountain, kind of a big mountain, and kind of make a big mess is what I felt like with R. Kelly, is just get it all out there. And so I'm inspired by that. And also kind of old school Werner Herzog. I studied his work and just how much he loves the art, and kind of that different eye that you talked about, Rianne, too, in a lot of ways. It's just different ways to approach story. And also, I'll say Charles, who's here too, he is a mean documentarian. No, he is. And just his passion I've learned so much. And so he inspires me as well. So just a couple.
Wow, I appreciate that. I'm just gonna stick with Agnes Welsh, the new wave filmmaker. She really inspired me when I was feeling kind of beat up, and when I saw her film The Gleaners. I don't know if you've ever seen that, but she really shot it off of like a really cheap camera, and literally kind of holding it out the window. She was pretty old at that time. She was, pushing 80, and she was driving around, and she did this open-ended story where talking about gleaning, which was like a thing in France and all over Europe, where you can pick fruit and vegetables off the ground for free. And she just took that definition, just went with it, including going into homelessness and really serious issues, and kind of weaving in and out almost in a free form way. But it was very inspiring, because when, as me, I'm like trying to figure out what the story is. And sometimes you feel constricted, and someone do that and do it well like that. It's like, wow, it can be done. So yeah, I'll just stick with her right now. Thanks.
Okay. Like any good documentary, all three of your films introduce us to, wonderfully vivid characters, but also deal with social issues. Can you just talk about wedding those two in your film, and why you think it's important, as an artist, to be able to do that? We'll start with Pam.
Okay. Yeah, let's see. Social issues and the characters in our film. One of the things that has meant the most to me making this film is the combination of gay and lesbian people living with straight people. Lodge advertises itself as welcoming to LGBTQ seniors and their allies. And I think we've all learned a whole lot from each other. I think if this place were entirely gay, it would be unbearable. But living together and educating each other on so many things has been a real eye-opener for me. And I think it is for people who look at the film too.
Sure. Okay. Katie and Charles.
Let's see. It's interesting. I think a lot of times people like to separate social issues from just lives in general, or we look at it kind of how we like to separate politics or separate social issues. And as I think we've all come to realize, is that our lives are inextricably intertwined with larger issues that are going on, and wherever you happen to be born into, and what group and what culture, your life will be wrapped into social issues and different things and different times. And so in thinking about that concept, the characters themselves, I think in documentary work, that begins to come out based on just who they are and what's going on around them. And I think from the artist perspective or the producer perspective of it, is being able to step back and just see who they are for who they are, and then what their lives, what issues and are tied to their lives. And so I think it's, especially for documentary work, is to step back and not try to force issues into a picture, but to watch what issues present themselves from the characters themselves.
Okay.
Charles, anything?
Yeah, that's pretty on the money with us. I mean, I think what you said. Yeah, I mean, the social issues is sort of like, it is wrapped up in their personality. And there's so much personality, they exude it. And I think with the houses, when you start learning what the houses are for, it's definitely a support network. There's one point where Marquise and his house were sitting around in the basement, and they actually gave us these sort of origin stories, like, why am I here? I got thrown in my house. I got thrown out of my own house, my house where I was born in. I was rejected. And then sometimes there were like kind of funny stories about how their friends knew that they were gay before they were gay. They even knew. But it was all like they needed and get, this support of a family where they can't get at home. And they say that over and over again at that situation. So that's definitely shows you where things are even today. Even though I know there's a lot more, as Keith will tell you, and a lot of them will tell you, is so much, quote, easier today than it was for them when they had to fight and literally fist fight and stuff like that. So yeah, I think like for us, we were trying to kind of keep the story as almost like a narrative kind of vibe, but in that narrative, it's real. It's like stuff that this is what's going on. This is what, they have to do this house because they're, they don't have a family, of a sort of old school vibe of a family or definition. So
yeah, great.
I hope that answers your question.
Yeah.
So,
And Rianne.
For me, I knew that in the age of like social media and me being Gen Z, is that I knew that there was going to be a whole bunch of videos and like mini compilations and docs about the protest that happened over the summer in 2020. And so like one of the biggest things was, how do I make Freedom Day different than just a bunch of protest footage? And I think that when I was watching, immediately once I heard about these three activists, I was like, this is a story right here. And I think that after watching the first footage that we got over Juneteenth, I learned that this story was going to be coming out through these characters. And that was my way to make it original and elevate it from just protest footage to really making it a story about people that love their community and that love themselves, and how can they advocate for their community, for each other, in a way that that a lot of people were doing that summer, and really taking the reins upon themselves to be the change that they want to see in their communities. And I think that that was one of the ways that I merged the characters with the social issue, and making it that you can fall in love with these people and fall in love with social justice at the same time. And seeing that through these characters, I think brings social issues to more of a human level, that this is something that we can tackle and do together by watching people do it themselves.
Okay. Final question. Where are you right now in your festival run, and what is next for your film? We'll start with Rianne.
So since this is my first festival, we are so grateful to be an add-on film. We're looking forward to hopefully getting into other films as well, but right now it's just running the rest of the film festival circuit. And so we're extremely grateful to be here, and couldn't be more honored for this to be our first festival.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. We're excited about having the film. Katie and Charles.
Oh, hey, Katie, I'm going to defer that to you if you want to.
Sure. So like I discussed at the beginning, we're kind of in the middle, I would say. We're still waiting to hear from some festivals, have been a part of some amazing festivals. Super excited about this one. This is the first one that's specific, LGBTQ. And we're very excited about that. And so very appreciative and grateful. So we're waiting to hear back, waiting to kind of see where things go, working on some screenings in the local area and how we can tie ways, anything that may come from the film to some organizations that are working locally. And so that's another thing, is working with Keith, London Marquise, to figure out ways to kind of tie it back to the community and what's going on for them. I think there's another ball in the works. We're hearing that. I know with COVID, it's kind of been an in and out type of thing. So I don't know if they're actually getting the go ahead with that yet, but just kind of trying to stay in a support mode with the community and get it out there as much as we can.
Okay. And Pam.
Yeah, we started, I mentioned before, I guess before you started recording, that we have been getting in mostly to gay festivals. Disappointing that we haven't gotten into the big time, LA, San Francisco. Still haven't heard anything from New York, but we're happy with what we're getting. We got into Atlanta and Philadelphia and Pittsburgh and Palm Springs. And we won a little, we made semifinalists in the Venice Shorts in Venice,
Nice.
California. Yeah, that's good. Louisville, I mentioned before, also the Toronto Women Film Festival. So our prized possession, our prized award, if it could call it that, is NETA, the National Education Television Association.
Mhm.
And they will put the film up on their satellite, and then it will be made available to all the PBS stations in the country.
Wonderful.
What we have to do is promote it to those stations to get it out. Also, we have an educational distributor, Alexander Street, and
Okay.
they distribute to colleges and universities and libraries. So we're on our way, a few
Great.
months into it.
It's great. That's some very exciting news. Again, thank you all for submitting your film to our festival. We're very lucky to have you. Thank you all for joining us today. This has been a great Q&A. And everybody out there, this is one of our documentary shorts programs. It's an excellent program, so hope you get a chance to watch it all. And thank you to our filmmakers.
Thank you very much for having
so
us.
much.
Thank
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.